Hey there, my fear-starved following. Welcome back to night 4 of this spookathon, getting ever closer to the big night.
Hey, Dad, I brought you 2 cups of pumpkin spice coffee.
Wait, 2 cups? But we just had a double feature yesterday. This would have been perfect for... never mind. Thank you. Well, it seems like it's time for another day of being two-fisted twisted, so buckle yourselves into wherever you're sitting and get ready for a double feature to make the monsters come calling. One I like to call The Pumpkin in My Window and Doughboy420's The One That Pulls the Strings. I don't think I'm going trick-or-treating this year. In fact, I think I'm about done with celebrating Halloween altogether. During the past week, I've awoken in the middle of the night to find a jack-o'-lantern facing my direction, staring at me. Now, since it's late October, this in itself isn't all that disconcerting. But it's always in a place where there was no jack-o'-lantern before, where there had never been one. And it's always gone by morning, never remaining outside my bedroom window for long. Now, my brother gets up earlier than I do for school, and he stays up later too, so the strange sequence of events was actually pretty ordinary, or at least explainable. The only thing I couldn't understand was where he was getting not only all of these pumpkins to carve on a daily basis, but also the time to do so. He is my older brother and likes to play scary pranks on me, so I understood why he did it. I only knew that he had to be carving a new one each day, as the faces were always different. Sometimes happy, sometimes agonizing, and sometimes menacing. But now, I know the truth. And I'm certainly done with Halloween. You see, my brother isn't home tonight. He's visiting Grandma out of state. So, he couldn't have been the one to put the jack-o'-lantern outside my window. The one with the intense stare and slowly curling smile. Now that you know my secret, I suppose it's safe to let you in on another one. Icarus has been in a frenzy in the few months following the Locust Lake incident. There's been an influx of new cases, new things popping up at random at such a rate that sometimes we can't keep up. My team flew to Japan to put a stop to a KLGG Yellow 16, an Ushi Oni that was terrorizing a fishing village. The thing was huge. It had what can only be described as the head and body of an ox, with curled tusks and horns framing 2 bulbous eyes. Its body was covered with shaggy, matted black fur, and it had 6 spindly, spider-like crab legs that allowed it to cling to any surface. We were able to drive it away from the village and back into the mountains where it sprouted 4 insect-like wings that allowed it to flee back from whence it had come. Then, the very next day, we were rushed onto a small plane that flew us down to the Philippines, where pregnant women and their unborn children were becoming victims of some fiendish creature. The locals believed it to be a manananggal, which we could barely pronounce, and it was something that we had never heard of before. We were soon made aware of exactly what this thing was when we heard some commotion at the neighbor's house. We broke the door down to find a long-haired woman standing over our very pregnant neighbor. A long, thin tongue extended out from her wide-open, fanged mouth to pierce through the belly button of the mother in order to directly feed on the fetus within. The thing saw us and immediately attempted to flee. It ran for the window, but one of my men tackled her to the ground. But this didn't stop her. We watched her skin stretch and rip about her midsection before her torso detached from her legs. Long, bat-like wings then sprouted out from nowhere as if she was hiding them somewhere in her flesh. She attempted once more to flee through the window, but I was able to step in her way and cut halfway through her neck with my machete. She fell to the ground, screeching like a bat, where I was able to finish the job. Our neighbor made a full recovery, and the baby was unharmed. We'd made it just in the nick of time. We burned the monster's corpse and continued on. For months upon months it went on like this, as if something was stirring the pot to get these things all riled up, or perhaps something was summoning them, or creating them. Were-lizards, werewolves, gorgons, imps, devils, vampires, chimeras, minotaurs. One thing after another. They just kept coming, always keeping us on our toes. It wasn't until Halloween night that I got a hint of an answer. People were being attacked and eaten by something, and the bodies were disappearing from the morgue, and it was all happening in a little place called Cold Ridge, Colorado. My team went there to find that the bodies weren't being taken from the morgue. They were getting up and walking away. The dead were reanimating after being attacked by the living dead. It was a UVZ purple, too. A full-on zombie outbreak in the heart of America. The town was in full swing, dressed as famous movie monsters with capes or bolts, while the others were clad in hockey masks or razor gloves to mimic the serial slashers of the 80s classics. There were sexy nurses, clowns, witches, and wizards. Everyone was having a blast of a time, trick-or-treating and partying the night away. However, shit hit the fan and everyone knew someone that was killed that night. It started just outside the hospital when a 24-year-old man was attacked by one of the bodies from the morgue. The thing took a chunk out of his shoulder, where he immediately rushed into the hospital to get help and seek treatment. From there, the entire hospital went on lockdown after people started being attacked. The police showed up and the virus spread, as no one knew what to do. The old movies are right. You have to shoot them in the head, or more specifically, you have to destroy the brainstem to stop the connection to the rest of the body. A simple shot to the head won't do it. You had to aim for the center of their face to sever the connection and stop them dead. We entered the hospital at around 3 in the afternoon, and as soon as we had stepped foot inside, a corpse on the floor lurched out and bit Benny on the ankle. I took action and removed his leg as quickly as I could, as my team disposed of the zombie that had bitten him. He was immediately evacuated, and thankfully, he made a full recovery. He was one of the lucky ones. In the ICU, there was an injured criminal that was handcuffed to a gurney. When we found him, he had been completely disemboweled and was attempting to rip his hand through the cuffs in order to get at us, his mouth biting at the air the entire time. This is where we were attacked by some doctors and patients, taking a chunk out of the necks of 2 of my men before the rest of us removed their heads. Unfortunately, we had to do the same to our own people to prevent their change. There was nothing that could be done for them. We went through the hospital floor by floor, killing off dozens of the living dead until we finally made it to the roof. That is where the remaining 5 members of my team, including myself, found a man in a black suit and tie, standing there oddly at the edge of the roof. "Sir, are you all right? Have you been bitten?" I asked him. I got no response. "Sir, please step away from the edge and answer my question." Still nothing. Only silence. "If you do not comply, I will be forced to..." I was interrupted by the sound of gunfire as a bullet ripped through the back of the man's skull. A bloody hole ripped clear through his head, but he just stood there, and we gazed on in shock as his blood sucked back into his head and the hole sealed up, as if nothing happened. The man then turned around and looked at us. He had pale skin with a kind of narrow facial structure. His hair was long and jet black, hanging down to mid-chest level. the most striking feature about him was that he had one brown eye and one bright red eye, an eye that felt like it was looking into my soul. Then, this thing acted quickly. It moved so fast that we only saw a blur, and before we could even blink, it had Agent John's still beating heart in its hand, and it was still another moment before his body dropped to the floor like a sack of potatoes. The thing grew long, claw-like fingers out of nowhere and sliced them clear through Eddie's neck, popping his head off like a child popping the flower off of a dandelion stem. Murphy and Blake blasted entire clips into the guy, but it didn't do a damn thing. He simply backed them up against the edge of the roof, where he pushed one of them onto the roof of a car below, while the other was ripped apart and dropped from the roof by a rope of its own intestines. The chaos came to a halt when it was only me left. My entire squad was dead for the second time in less than a half a year. I figured that after all I had been through with Icarus, and all I had survived at Locust Lake, it would now be this to do me in. My time had finally come. I looked down and waited for death, but it didn't come. Instead, the man with one red eye simply walked toward me and put a hand on my shoulder before continuing on past me. Why are you here? Why are you doing this? I pushed my luck and asked him.
I'm not here for you,
the man said in a calm, almost whispering tone, before he let himself fall backwards off the edge of the building. I ran over to the edge, expecting to see a body, but I saw nothing. There was no sign of the man at all. More teams from Icarus came in and cleaned up the mess at the hospital, and thankfully, we were able to keep it mostly contained to the hospital and nearby area. But it was all taken care of. The media blamed it on a biohazard contamination. Rumors spread of what really happened, but no one could prove anything. I still don't understand what it was that I had encountered there, and Icarus told me not to pry into it. So of course, I'm going to pry into it. But I have to be smart about it. In case something happens to me, I want there to be a record of what I've seen here. I have to figure out why Icarus wants this kept secret. Signed, Commander Todd.
Whoa, so that's where all the monsters are coming from outside my window at night. Either that, or my pets got loose again. Either way, I'm sure I'll be right back here again tomorrow for night 5 of this saga of screams, one you won't want to miss out on either. So lock those doors and hope to make it till morning. The monsters will be gone by then. You hope.